Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Let's Talk About the Real Shit. We love getting together every week and having these conversations. I am Naomi, and we have Lori and Lucas in the house.
Hey, everybody.
Yay. Tonight, we are super, super excited. We have been talking about Cuddles and where you can get them for a few weeks now. And so we have Joey Cuddles in the house tonight from the company Cuddle Up to Me.
Hello.
There's Joey. Anyway, so we're excited to kind of get into what it is exactly she does as a professional cuddler, some of the things that happened, and so on and so forth. So we're going to get into that tonight. But before we do, we are going to start our podcast off with Lori's quote of the week.
All right, everybody. Here we go. Life will only change when you become more committed to your dreams than you are to your comfort zone. And that's by Billy Cox. So just in thinking about that, this podcast is a part of a dream, a vision that Naomi and I had coming to fruition. So super excited.
Yep. I actually talk about it a lot too in my rideshare car in the day, and it comes up often because I'm in it right now, and so I'm super pumped up about being able to have a voice and to have a company that is set to help people. And so we talk about it in the car all the time, and I actually listen to other people's podcasts. And one time on Joe Rogan's, he was talking about just putting the effort into yourself every day and your passions and your desires. And he was talking about, like you can do your website now. It's really not that hard. And it's true. I mean, you can set up a basic website for yourself now. Zone in what your passions are. Spend a couple of hours on yourself and your company, and you'd be surprised the French doors, as we like to say it, what French doors will open up for you that you probably can't even imagine. I mean, it'll probably take you in directions following your passions, because in life your passions change as well. But yeah, it's really fun to encourage people. I'm like, what are your hopes and dreams? Like, what are you good at? Is there something that you're good at now that you could turn into something that you could do for yourself?
You were such a mom. Oh my God.
She is.
Thanks, Joey.
Everybody is a baby.
I know. Like, baby. Fly.
She's an auntie to everybody.
I do say that I'm auntie to all children. I do say that. I love the kids so much. I have raised plenty, that is for sure. But I also love people. I love I've had a lot of personal, vulnerable, dark, sad, depressing moments, and it has made me who I am today. And I'm super stoked that I actually have a cuddly man in my life. It takes a minute for me, but I finally got him. And so for him and I, and that's going to go right into cuddling, it is probably one of the most important things that we love doing every single day. And we call it Oons Snoogles. It's like, Oons Snoogles, no.
So aggressive.
That's Jesse in the background.
The show.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we let him out of the basement for this one. Anyways, but it's something for me in this relationship, and he's my third one, you guys. And Snuggles is, because beauty fades, you get tired, we get wrapped up in the Groundhog Day, it's just constant. It's a rat race out there. And if you can, and I was actually reading articles leading up to having you come tonight, and it's true when they say if you can have 10 minutes of snuggles with someone who loves you, it can really be that 10 minutes of your entire day that's actually, it's like no stress involved.
Mm-hmm. Or stress reducing.
Reducing,
leveling, grounding you, bringing you back to inner peace that you don't get just out there in the real world. Or as a single person too, that human touch is, something. And as a physical therapist, I know that human touch can be healing, and it just helps you feel connected to others.
So, that goes into Joey and you guys. Joey comes in from this place in Portland, Oregon called Cuddle Up to Me. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Joey.
Oh, okay. So I started at Cuddle Up to Me for a very good reason, and that is that I needed money. But the secondary reason was that I had been doing a lot of research on depression and suicidal ideation in middle-aged men, which sounds like a really random thing to research, but it's something that I had seen pop up a lot in the news, and apparently suicide is the number one killer of men ages 50, and that's above heart disease, cancer, anything else that you would assume would hit around that age. And that to me was just shocking. It was shocking to know that people felt so isolated and helpless in their situation that would be their main alternative to living. Just like, okay, let's just take care of this because nobody loves me. It's like, okay, I get it. I get that feeling of helplessness, and I have definitely been there. But there has to be something that we can all do to support each other and to say, look, I know you're going through a hard time. I know this is a giant transitory situation for you right now, which is, around age 50, people start to die a lot more often. Mm-hmm. You might have relationship changes that are very painful. And if you are a man, you are socialized to be with your partner, and that is it.
Yeah.
So when that partner dies or leaves or just decides, you know what, not super into you, not really going to be a supportive partner to you anymore, it feels like your entire world is crashing down around you. So I was like, okay, I can either go to school for 8 more years to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or,
counselor, a
counselor,
therapist,
literally anything, social worker, whatever.
So, wow, that takes a while.
Yeah, it takes a hot minute, or I can find something where I can help in a more immediate and just as satisfying way. So I was looking at Craigslist and just saw this ad for it was hey, search for cuddlers in your area, and you can be a cuddler and you can list yourself. And I was like, that sounds shady as hell. I'm not doing that. Nothing against, I'm sure there are plenty of wonderful cuddlers on sites like these, but to me, that sounded like a great way of getting murdered. So I was like, I don't feel like that right now. So I'm just going to find a different way to do this. So I just searched professional cuddler, Portland, and magically, Cuddle Up to Me popped up, and I was like, oh, there's like a place where you can do the thing and you won't get murdered? That's amazing.
Right.
So I sent in an application for more information. I went to a giant group interview where a whole bunch of people asked really uncomfortable questions and made it very clear that they were not open to being cuddled by literally anyone with any sort of background. And people kind of weeded themselves out very quickly.
Yeah.
And I was the one person who was like, yes, I'm still crazy enough to do this. Let's go.
Oh.
So I was pretty quickly hired, and I started training, and it's been a roller coaster of emotions. And I definitely wouldn't change a goddamn thing.
Oh, so how long have you been doing it officially?
I have been doing it for, I think officially, including the interview, I've been in the process for 2 years.
Wow.
Officially working, it's been a little over a year and a half at this point.
Well, you answered a few of my questions that I had already, and it was like the demographic.
You can ask them again.
The demographic of the people that are coming. So is it mostly men that are middle-aged? And or do you get any women or all ages?
It's kind of an all ages thing. I do have more of a male clientele than female. I think that's kind of part of it is less about... I feel like there's still a lot of heteronormative kind of stuff that works with being cuddled by somebody. Like the idea is that, oh, well, if I wouldn't fuck them, then I don't want them to cuddle me, which is, I mean, I get it. I totally get it, especially if you're new to it. You're like, I don't want to be cuddled by somebody that I'm not personally at least a little bit attracted to or interested in slightly, so that I can kind of pretend that this is a normal situation for myself. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is about that kind of heteronormative aspect of how we're socialized. But that being said, the female clients that I have are the gender fluid, gender neutral, whatever. They are long-term and very dedicated clients when they find someone that they connect with. So yes, it tends to be a lot of men because it's hard out there for a man.
Yeah.
I know we don't like to talk about that, but it really is.
Yeah,
So let's talk a little bit about some of the rules
Okay, yeah,
of cuddling.
totally.
Because I think they're very interesting. Some of the rules that we saw were the clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the rules, and then the three of us can jump in on some of that too, and maybe ask
Yeah.
more questions. So why don't you
Yeah.
start with some of the rules for that?
Sure. So, and I'll have to remember them. It's some of the basics are so obvious. It's like no touching in the bathing suit area. Like that's pretty clear. It's understandable why that would be a thing. A lot of times we have to tell people not to kiss us on the cheek or on the head, on the hands. Like, as I don't personally believe that it's always like a romantic intention, but I do think it's kind of like, oh, I love you, I'm going to give you a kiss on the cheek because you're like my mom right now and I love my mom.
right.
You know, that kind of thing, but we don't
not
want it
appropriate.
to, yeah, it's just not appropriate. It's not something that you would do with a professional. It's totally understandable.
Yeah.
I get it, but yeah, that's one of our hard and fast rules. As far as clothing is concerned, we want all bits covered. We don't want people wearing just underwear. That being said, like we will kind of like fudge the line a little bit for some people if we have a very good reason. But generally
what would a reason
speaking,
be? Just curious.
I have one gentleman that comes to me and he just really doesn't have clothing that is appropriate and comfortable. So we let him wear his boxers, but his boxers are like big and they cover everything. Everything is like snapped into place. Like he's not going to push any boundaries. He's not going to try anything with you. So you can trust him to have that kind of bending of the rules. But in general, we just want people covered up. You know, you want to be comfortable as you can be cuddling with a stranger. But generally speaking,
Do you only cuddle? I mean, do you only cuddle or do you do other types of, because in the website, it kind of makes it look like you may not cuddle. You might just talk.
Yeah. So for a lot of my clients, they're dealing with, I have a lot of clients who are dealing with heavy physical trauma. So for some of them, we start off with no cuddling whatsoever. And they can just kind of determine when they want to try to push forward a little bit. But in general, we like to reassure people that you can come into a session and not touch at all. Sometimes it's just about being in the same room with a stranger and how scary that is. It's like aversion therapy. Like you're going to see a black fluffy ball and be like, it's a spider. And it's like, no, that's not a spider. I can touch that. I can, oh, this is a fake spider. Okay, I can touch the fake spider. And then finally you see a real spider and you're like, oh, okay, well, this isn't so bad. So it's like that kind of aversion therapy. It's like, yes, people have hurt you, but you can be in a space with a stranger right now, and I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to respect your boundaries. We can leave the door open. We can not talk. We can talk. We can listen to something. We can watch something. It's completely up to you. As long as you respect my boundaries, I am completely here for you.
Right. And you guys are, then that's kind of goes to the rules. It's you have to have these conversations with people, because when I talk about this company a lot with people, they're all for it, but there's a lot of questions for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, we were reading like some of the rules. So for has this ever happened to you where somebody like got a boner?
Yeah, it's normal.
Is that normal?
Yeah, it's totally normal.
What happens when, because that's on one of the rules, what happens when they get a boner?
So people are usually very quick to ask the question, like, just wondering if something happens, if I have like a reaction. You're like, yeah, if you get a boner, okay, just don't like make it awkward. Like reposition yourself. Wait to calm down. Like if you want me to like completely get away from you for a second so that you can recenter yourself and, try to get yourself back to that platonic space, then that's totally cool. Like I like to make it like your body is sometimes going to do shit that you don't agree with, because that is totally a thing. We have all been to the bar, and that one person who, like, well, I assume we've all been to the bar. That one person who you would never in a million years want to, like, get on, for some reason looks at you and you're like, yes, you. I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I've never done that before. I don't know. I'm just like making shit up. I'm just like, whatever. But you know, your body reacts in certain ways. It's not always intentional, and I can usually tell when someone is pushing a boundary and like trying something, and then I'll hit them with a pillow and be like, "Fuck off."
Yeah.
Don't make it weird.
Yeah.
I usually can like joke with people.
Kind of a little. It's kind of. I've worked as a cocktail waitress in a strip club before, and there's rules. There's definitely rules set in place, and I can understand that kind of way when you're kind of trying. And actually, it's worse because they're wasted.
Yeah,
so
that's one of our rules, by the way. You can't be wasted here.
That's
I was just going to ask that.
That's good, you know. But there's rules set in place for our safety, you know, which goes into another question. I think that immediately I had about it was safety. Do you guys have a security guard there? Or do you just discuss the rules ahead of time and make sure everything's going to be okay? And how does that work?
I usually phrase it this way. And once I phrase it this way, people are pretty quick to understand. Like if something were to happen, it wouldn't be because like there isn't enough like social contract around it that like, I don't know. Here, I'll just explain it. So nobody's going to get on the website, find their cuddler, book their appointment with their name and their email, their phone number, their address, whatever. Come in, give me their ID, fill out the paperwork, do the 30-minute consultation, and then murder me.
Okay, so there's the
like
consultation.
it's just so much work. It's so much work. Like if you're gonna do something that's that involved, it's for a personal reason and it has nothing to do with you're just seeking out someone to victimize, you know? So there is kind of like a built-in layer of like safety there just because there are so many steps and we do have cameras in the rooms too. So if someone were to do something in there.
Perfect. And they know that obviously because you have to tell them.
There's no sound recording. There is, we save the video for I think it's like at least 3 weeks. And then from there we can choose to save video if something has happened. So if I had an incident with someone, then I could just say, hey, Sam, save the video for this. And I'll tell her like the day and everything.
Even if you had like a little teeny gut feeling,
just like
you could be like, today we're gonna put this one in the file.
Like this person feels litigious and they were acting weird, so can you just save this one? Like I could totally do that. That being said, I've never had anyone who has at all seemed unsafe.
Yeah.
Boundary
That was
crossing,
just my question, Joey. You just read my mind. I'm like, is there anybody that you have ever had to say no? One and done.
Nope.
Interesting.
Even the people, so I had one guy press boundaries so much that I did like throw a pillow at him and just was like, you are crossing my boundaries so hard right now. You need to
You tapped out? Because that was like in the rules too, I guess.
So I didn't tap out.
Oh, okay.
This was at the end. So he saved his completely inappropriate behavior toward the very end where like we were already finished with our session and we were like wrapping up. I was talking to him or whatever. And like at the very end, as he was walking out, he said, I need to go to church.
Oh my God.
It was like, you know, I don't mean to make you feel guilty, but like, yeah, that was super inappropriate, dude.
Was that the weirdest one that you've had?
I mean, everyone's a little weird. I would say like weirdest. I feel like that's a completely normal reaction for a guy who's getting over like porn addiction. Like,
okay.
So let's go back to tap out for a minute. So explain the rules of tap out.
So tap out means if I am uncomfortable, if the other person is uncomfortable, but we don't feel safe or we don't feel able to verbalize why we're uncomfortable, you can do 2 quick taps and then all contact will end. You both sit up, you separate, you can take a little bit to think. Whoever tapped out is the person who controls the conversation at that point. So both people are silent and you just wait. And then the person will be like, I just got like this really weird feeling, or I just felt like attacked for a second. We can say, okay, why did you feel attacked? Is there anything that I did that triggered something in you? Oh, that's another thing that we do. We don't say triggered, we say activated. Like
That's a good idea.
Did I negatively activate you?
Yeah.
Like, is there any way that I can fix what happened, or I can improve my approach with you so that you feel safe?
Yeah.
Wow, what an exercise in human communication.
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
Wow.
So, Joey, I've got a question. I've been listening this whole time as the introduction seemed that most of the clients were, from what the development came from in your searchings, were mostly like middle-aged males. So I'm curious of a few things. Like one, the clientele, are they predominantly within that population that you were sort of searching out? And two, I'm curious to hear about the other professional cuddlers, like what kind of people they are as far as demographics go.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. I tend to have more males. That being said, the demographic shifts based on the time of year. I find in the summer, I get more young men, and that's strange to me. I don't know why. To be fair, I haven't really looked into it or asked questions, but that's just a thing. And then towards the winter, I tend to get a lot of like older men who are maybe feeling that kind of isolation a bit more, because like when it's winter, you kind of hunker down and nobody's going out, and
And the holidays are coming.
exactly, it's a lot of pressure for a lot of people. So I would say that my demographic is definitely mostly men, and the age bracket just kind of shifts a little bit depending upon the time of the year.
You know if that's true for the other cuddlers as well?
I don't know for a fact. I do know that the vast majority of our clientele is male. So I would assume that translates across the board.
I actually did look up today, you guys, of other cuddlers when I was kind of searching if this was only in Portland predominantly, or in California. And so there is other cuddlers out there. And so not all of them are like certified cuddlers, apparently, but some of them actually will travel because it's the cost of the cuddles and travel expenses. So, and actually, I was looking at all the pictures of all these cuddlers from really all around. It's quite, I think it might be more popular on the West Coast.
It definitely
From what I
seems to be.
noticed.
Yeah.
I mean, just from going down the list, but you've got all different kinds of body shapes, ages.
Genders.
Exactly, genders. And then there's actually a thing called master cuddlers, and I was actually going to ask you what a master cuddler was.
Oh, she just went right where my thought went to. What's the difference?
Because they did have the little thing on their picture that they were a master cuddler.
I am technically moving into that bracket, and that basically means that for our certification process, the process that Sam Hess, our business founder, has created, that means you have 250 working hours. And that does not include...
So it's experience.
Yeah, it's based on your experience and your ability to create safe space for a clientele.
Yeah. So you mentioned how in the beginning and this is something that I really wanted to kind of go into a little bit tonight, was from when I look onto the website, when I'm reading articles about cuddling, when I'm looking into this whole venture, it really boils down to people needing affection and love and touch. And, when I'm looking at the website, we talk about therapy. It's like therapy for a lot of people. And I have personally been through a lot of dark moments, and I know I'm not the only one in this group that has. In fact, we probably all have had different moments and different stories. But in those moments, when you take those dark moments and then you can turn around and help somebody, like cuddling. And so, yes, this maybe seems strange to some people because we've all had kind of a trauma, I guess, to put it blankly, right? It is like trauma. We've all had different, variations of trauma. But it really comes down to moments when we have been the most alone, I would say. What do you guys think? When we're feeling super alone, we've lost people, or we've lost our pets or something,
That's a big trigger for people. Activation.
There is a lot of trauma out there in the world. And I personally, when I think about the school shootings and these things and these crazy acts of just attention, right? Because they know that it's going to be media because they eat this stuff up. And it's like that moment of desperation, notice me, So when we're talking about this isn't just like these, in our venture to look into Cuddlers, the reason that you guys are doing this, it's kind of, it is therapy. It's not kind of therapy. It is a form of therapy. You guys aren't certified as therapist or a counselor or anything,
right, but we actually do have a lot of therapists and counselors who come and see us.
That would definitely be a question that I would have
as clients. You have a lot of therapists that come as clients.
Yes.
Wow, interesting.
It's fascinating. And I talk to them about their work and how they give back to themselves because it is, I work with predominantly clients who have heavy trauma. And that means that I get to hear the worst things that have ever happened to people. And a lot of times you think that you know the worst thing that you can hear, and then you hear something worse, and you're like, hold it together.
Yeah, you're an empath, aren't you?
Yes.
So
yes.
am I.
So I'll usually hold it together, and I can put on my face where I'm like, I'm really sorry that this happened to you. You didn't
it's
deserve
not okay that
and
this
then
happened.
they leave, and I can just sob.
So question, what do you do for you to keep your cup full so that you can continue to give?
That's a hard question because I struggle with that quite a bit. I'm a mom of a 5-year-old, and she is a very challenging 5-year-old, and I would not have her any other way. So I'm not.
And you're a dog mom too.
And I have 5 dogs and a bearded dragon, and I live with my mom, and I am the primary person for 3 people that all live in my house. So for me, a lot of times my recharging is just me being alone in silence. I'm like, okay, I have energy now. I'm very much like an extroverted introvert where I think a lot, but I want to talk to people because I'm profoundly curious about everybody. And I think everybody has something to teach you regardless of whether or not you agree with them personally. For me, a lot of my recharge is just being alone and feeling good about that. And I think that's interesting for a lot of people because they're alone feels so heavy and mine feels free.
Right.
So how do you do that with your mom, your dogs, your daughter, your clients?
I sit in my car a lot.
I understand that.
That sounds so sad. But
No, it
it's
does
like
not.
the brief moment where
not at
okay,
all.
I've done the drop off. I've gotten people dressed and ready for school. I have collected things. I fed the dogs. I fed the bearded dragon. I turned on the lights. I made sure everything was done. And then I sit in the car after drop off and I'm just
silence.
yeah, just on my phone.
I
Looking at
think
Facebook.
I think mamas in general really, really appreciate silence.
Yes.
Even if it's for 2 minutes, it's like nothing is pulling at me right now.
Right. I don't
It's
have anything to
silent.
That everybody could actually practice that because you could actually turn your commute into the only time that you get to think about things.
do. Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Be careful though, because if Lego is yakking in your head, you might not want silence. So Lego, just to backtrack, Lego is what I named my ego.
Yeah.
And my ego is what chatters in my head all the time. And
Okay.
we won't go into that, but I'm just...
Is your ego happy or sad?
Ooh, that's
She's
a very
really
good
happy
question
right
to ask
now,
her.
but there's been a lot of work to get her there. So that's a whole nother, but yeah, the silence can be blissful, but it can also be very
It can be dangerous
challenging.
for people.
Challenging, yes.
That's why I'm very quick to say, our service is not going to be for everybody. It's not. It's like meditation. Meditation is a great idea, but it's not for everybody because for a lot of people, that silence in yourself is too much. It's too much space for you to explore all the things that you hate about your situation or yourself, all the things that you feel inadequate for. So I am very quick to tell people if it doesn't work for you, that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to. We'll find something else. Just let me know how you feel.
We talk about that a lot here. It's like respect other people's truth. Let's learn from each other. You're right. It isn't for everybody. When I talk about it in my car with people, it's a pretty wide demographic, And so a lot of the comments are very positive, by the way, here in Portland. Some of them immediately, when I even mention it, it's interesting what happens. And they're like, I wouldn't let anybody touch me. I couldn't do that.
Right.
Not for me, but I completely respect the fact that other people do need that. So,
So since you brought that up, why don't you just kind of share a little bit about how we're even on this topic tonight?
Oh, yeah. Well, this all started because I was driving in my car, rideshare. And I picked up this middle-aged man. He was probably in his 60s, I would say, because he had been married for a very long time. Anyway, I thought he was getting picked up at the acupuncture place, which is right next to the Cuddle Up to Me, because I don't even think I noticed the sign until after he got in the front seat with me, by the way, too. So as a female Lyft and Uber driver, it's kind of, it's like, okay, but he was doing it. Like this was going down.
He committed to it.
He committed to it. And I'm okay. If they're going to commit to it, I think that, okay, this person's going to
like
at least
being
have a
shady about it.
conversation with me. So I asked him immediately. I was like, okay, I'm going to embrace this. We're going to just get the ball rolling. And I was like, do you just get acupuncture? Because looked like he was feeling good. And he goes, no, I went to the other place. He's like, I went up to Cuddle Up to Me. And he had no qualms about telling me, and I was in that space where I'm asking questions. And basically, the reason that you're here tonight is because I had this amazing 15 minutes with this man, and we were talking about the real shit in 15 minutes. And I immediately had tons of questions, and he was very open to answering it. But basically, in a nutshell, his story is that he was married for 17 years. She passed 2 years, just like ago, just like you had mentioned earlier. And he was up here visiting family, and he says, I've looked in California. It's harder to find more of a legitimate place because their prices range from $80 to $350, and that just concerns me, which we'll talk about after this, right? Because that leads into that question. But he goes, so I saw, here in Portland, and it just, this is kind of where it started, right? Is this where it started? Was Portland?
So Sam is from the Portland area. And from what I understand, she was kind of working all within I think she did some work in Salem, like Bend. Like she had a lot of people from a lot of places that she was working with. But mainly the Portland area.
He kind of just went to the source, and he was like, I've never done it, but I wanted to try. And he told me, because and I go, well, how do you feel? I was like, how do you feel? He's sitting next to me.
What's his demeanor like, right?
He was high.
Right.
He was high because we know that when we have these touch and the cuddles, it actually does chemically, and this is all scientific, raises your endorphins.
Yeah.
It releases like the oxytocin into your body, and that's the happy drug.
Absolutely.
And so, he was awesome, and he was super stoked, and he needed that, and he felt high, and I was like all about having the conversation, and so here we are. But that goes into the fact that he was fortunate to find you guys here in Portland. But what would you recommend? What kinds of things? Is that a thing where it's going to end with a happy ending? Or are they ruining it for you guys?
How would somebody who's looking right now, like if I were to jump online right now, aside from just the Google search, like how am I going to know what's appropriate and not? Like if I'm looking for cuddling, literally that's it. As opposed to, maybe finding somebody who's kind of like advertising under the radar and that kind of thing. If I want the legit service, like how do I tell the difference?
So one thing that I would recommend, just because, I'm here, Certified Cuddlers is run by Sam. And Sam is the founder and, fearless leader, for better or worse, of Cuddle Up to Me. So that is all people who have been certified, who have done the training, and Sam will not certify someone who seems to have ulterior motives or inappropriate boundaries around the cuddling. If you are looking outside of that site, I would suggest finding a place that actually has a studio because they are less likely to do illegal things if they have to be insured.
And are all the cuddlers that cuddle up to me, is it one location that they all work in, or do you guys do remote visit kind of thing?
So we can do remote visits. That does incur an extra travel fee. That being said, most people actually enjoy coming to the studio. I think it feels more official. For a lot of people, it is their only time that they get out of the house because of trauma or disability. So for a lot of people, it's a destination site and just a chance to experience what we have to offer as a community, which all of our rooms are like special. They all have different themes. We have a space room that I'm not supposed to have favorites, but it is low-key like my favorite place on earth. But yeah, I feel like, if you're visiting a studio, it is more likely to be a legitimate cuddle business. And that's not to say anything negative about sexual services. I think it's important to know what you're getting, right? And if you go to a cuddler and you get a sexual experience, that is going to impact your feelings around the whole thing, whether it's like, oh, I don't feel safe because I feel like I was tricked, or like, oh, well, is this like, I don't know what I'm getting here. Like, am I supposed to feel platonic with you, or am I supposed to feel sexual? Like, why wouldn't you just tell me what the service is?
And that makes it more challenging for certified cuddlers. So in that, my question is, what is like the certification process? What did you, Joey, go through to become a certified cuddler? And other than experience to become a master cuddler, is there anything other than time in the studio to become a master cuddler?
So from my understanding, the master cuddler label exists just for our studio to differentiate, because we have cuddlers that have come in at all different levels and have had different amounts of availability and experience. So that is something that exists specifically for us, if I am not mistaken. That being said, for the process of becoming a cuddler in general, to become a certified cuddler, it is 40 hours of instruction, and then you essentially take on practice clients. And those clients are people, hopefully, that you can trust, or people that have been kind of utilized within the community.
Vetted through the community.
Vetted to some degree, yes. So I was lucky enough to get to work with people who had been doing cuddling sessions for a very long time and who were not afraid to say, oh, wow, that sucked. Or like, oh, I was uncomfortable. Right? Yeah, but that's what I want to hear. Like, it's hard to be bad at stuff, but also I can't stand it when someone doesn't tell me the truth, or when someone makes me feel like something's great and they were like, oh, but I was like in a lot of pain the whole time because my neck hurt. Like, then I didn't do a good job. Right, like, right. I appreciate your comfort and your consideration, but you can tell me if like your arm is numb, and I wish you would.
Right.
Yeah. What are the things that make up a good cuddling session compared to one that sucks?
I think for me, it's about creating a space where it's not about you as the professional. And I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do, is to let go of your own impulses, your own desires around a session, and to say, what does this person actually need? And I'm not saying that I hit that mark every time. Like, I'm sure there is failure in there. But I feel like a lot of times what I'm trying to do is to say, knowing this client and having had this consult or this like previous experience with the client, what does the client actually need out of these sessions? So if the client is so hideously depressed that they only function enough to get to the studio, I'm not going to talk to them about heavy shit unless they bring it up. I'm just not going to. I'm going to keep it light. I'm going to joke. I'm going to do whatever it is that I can do to get them to get all of those good hormones in their system, because we're not in a position to process right now. We can barely even survive. So for me, that's really hard, because I want to talk about the real shit.
I'm the same way.
It's really hard for me to be light when I know that someone's going through shit, because I want to be like, dude, what are you doing to take care of yourself right now? Like, I can appreciate how much effort it took for you to get out of bed, but what do you do on the days when you don't come here? Like, tell me. Let's work out a plan. sometimes that's not welcome.
My therapist is actually the one who ended up telling me or kind of helping me get to a space where I could be that person, like where instead of bombarding who I was on any of these conversations with these people, it's like, yeah, I mean, I found somebody dead. He was one of my best friends through suicide, da, da, da. And they're like, oh my God, that's crazy. And I'm just like, yeah, let's talk about it, But my therapist has definitely helped me kind of
Take it down
a few notches.
Right.
It's hard for me because my husband and I speak freely around each other constantly. When you're able to completely be honest and speak freely around somebody all the time, I don't have much of a filter. But my therapist is the one who kind of toned it down.
Yeah.
Because what happens is too that I have the weight of the world on my shoulders.
So you want to unload. You're
So
just like, all of this
I'm
stuff.
like, I'm feeling your pain right now. Let's talk about it. I'm here.
Right.
I'm here to listen.
Right. So it's a part of it is understanding that there is like a defined ego involved in whatever you're doing. So you have to be able to remove your ego to a certain degree. Like you keep your ego enough to say, I'm the professional in this situation. I'm going to keep control of the session so that this person feels safe enough to approach their issues if they
go
want
better
to.
that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In the end, it will be a better way of doing it.
And for a lot of people, like they start off wanting to joke with me and we talk about like, I love horror movies. So we'll talk about horror movies and we'll talk about like, just silly shit. Like we'll make jokes with each other and then they'll say something and I'll say, oh, here's my chance. And then I'll just say, so do you talk to someone about that? And I've gotten a lot of people like, there are very few things that I'm like crazy proud of myself enough to like talk about to people or to say, look, I've done this thing. Congratulate me. But I've gotten a lot of my people to go to therapists to say like, okay, you enjoy talking to me. It doesn't have to be that intense with a therapist. Like if you find the right person, you're going to be comfortable. It's just like a process to find that person.
Yeah.
That was right where my mind was going. Was you'd mentioned before you've got therapists and counselors that come in as clients. I've delved into some schooling for therapy, undergrad and grad. So I'm kind of on the path, and I was really, really curious. A therapist as a client or other clients that coming in that aren't seeking out therapy. I didn't know whether it was one of those like, ooh, sweet, we got one, as opposed to competition, or if it's really more of a cooperative effort. And that being said, like, do therapists that practice appreciate what you guys do? I mean, it seems they're clients, so.
I don't feel any level of competition with talk therapy. I just don't. It's an entirely different situation, and there are different uses for both things. And I personally believe that every single person on earth needs to go to a therapist.
So do I.
I mean, even if you have a great life, you have shit that you need to process and like
healthy
weird tendencies that you can approach.
Mental illness.
Yeah.
You care about your mental illness, which is good to go to a therapist who can help you with tools.
Even if it's just like, I just need to have someone to bitch at for an hour.
Totally. I mean,
like you take all of that heat off of the people that are close to you so that you can ration out some of your trauma, which is, something that we all have to learn.
Or
not
uncover
to, like, dump.
your own limiting beliefs.
Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of people will support it because you'll say it in a way that sounds very convincing.
Has everybody here gone to therapist?
Yes.
I have in the past.
I love my therapist so much. She is my little
dedication.
It's more, there are a lot of waiting lists right now for people. And that, that's another thing I was really, excited about, knowing that this service is out there. Because insurance or not, if you're going to a therapist, there's either like a high price or a long waiting list. So the reason that I'm seeing 3 right now is one of them I'm just finally seeing after a 2-month waiting list. The other one I've only had 1 session with after the assessment intake, so I'm still seeing if we're going to be a good fit for me. And the third one is one that I can get into sometimes and seek out, but he's expensive, so it's just, I mean, it's like, I'm kind of making the best with what I have right now. in my head, as I'm listening to this discussion, I'm hearing the content and the information, which is amazing. And part of me is like, yeah, but is this, like, would the therapy certification board be cool with you all doing what you're doing? Because it sounds like you absolutely are doing therapy, and I think it's great. I'm curious, I guess, liability.
You want to know where the line is.
I'm curious about liability, and it sounds like with your intake process, you folks have that pretty nailed down. But would you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely. So we are very quick, and I am very quick to assert that although I call myself like cuddle therapy, I am not a board certified therapist, and I should not be used as a board certified therapist.
Agreed.
Like, I will not diagnose you. Anytime that I give advice, I am very quick to say, this is from my own personal experience. This is not me telling you how to live your life. You take it or leave it. And I am pretty steadfast in my assertion that people need to seek therapists. And I sound a little like a broken record to some of my clients, I'm sure, because I will constantly say, like, I feel like therapy, if you can kind of wrap your mind around it, would be a really good option for you, because you're dealing with a lot, and some coping mechanisms and some practical work would be really good for you.
And you're not telling them to do anything you haven't done yourself.
Right. And I'm also very honest about the process, which is like, I've seen so many therapists, and a lot of my therapists, because I am really good at talking myself out of things and like processing my own shit.
Most
a lot of my
humans
therapists are not ready to work with me. They're just like, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I'm coming here for. Like, I need you to like call me on my shit, please. Like, don't just yes man me.
Well, and I think Lucas alluded to that too a little bit, is
Right.
you need to find the right, and Naomi
Yes.
too.
Oh, yeah.
You need to find the right person that is going to help you on your journey.
Right. And
that
for
takes
me,
time.
also, if someone is between paying for a really good therapist that's going to give them some practical life skills to work with and a cuddle session, sometimes the better option is going to be going to a board certified therapist. And that is it. And I will tell them that. I'll say, I think your money would be spent better, like potentially going to a therapist if you can find
Bravo.
one. I'm here for you. But like, spend your money wisely. I'm not going to let you, run yourself into the ground just to see me. It's not going to work that way.
Yeah.
And is all that part of? This is, I guess, where my question focuses on. Is all that part of the certified cuddling training that you and others have gone through?
So I would say it feels to me like, yes, that is something that is pretty well hammered home. That being said, I don't know how the other cuddlers feel about it. I know within our own practice, we are very much taught to not call ourselves therapists, to assure people that we are not therapists, that we are not to be taken as like psychological counseling. But if someone takes the training and then moves to, Podunk, Arkansas, I'm from Arkansas, so I can say that. If they move someplace else and start doing something different with it, like, the only thing that we can do is hope that people will contact us and say, hey, this person is doing something that is not quite ethically sound.
Yeah.
So is your certification through Cuddle Up to Me just
Yes.
through Sam
Yes.
and her no, what's the word? Curriculum.
Yes.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, so she has created a pretty watertight curriculum. There are other certification programs for cuddling. There is one that, the two women who run the studio in LA, like, I think it's called Cuddle Sanctuary. I always forget. Yeah, I think it's Cuddle Sanctuary.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. Hey, technology. So the woman who runs Cuddle Sanctuary and Sam have both taken each other's training programs, and it is like a very similar dynamic with like different approaches.
So they're trying to make it universal, maybe in being a professional
yes.
cuddler. That
Yes.
if you cross state lines, this is kind of the expectation.
Yes. That being said, there is no real way to police any of this at this point. They're like beyond just like our good intentions. Like, hey, you're not going to take this and do something weird with it, right?
Yeah, this is one of a great example or differences, like where birth doulaship came from. At first it was just folks like assisting with home births and kind of being there as the assistant role as the doula, and then eventually it's become big enough across states that and I don't know birth doula specifically, but they have certification boards, and then as they grow bigger, then they have national boards and things like that. Massage therapy is another example. Like,
yeah, that's actually what I
Idaho.
was going to say.
What was it, 6, 7, some years ago, maybe a little longer, in Idaho, they didn't have a massage therapy board. So you could just go there and openly practice. Say you're a massage therapist, charges one, you couldn't accept insurance, but you could do all the things. And now they have a board. So now if you want to get and do massage therapy professionally and charge money in Idaho, you've got to go through the certification, which is very similar, but not the same as other states.
So you have to have a license. So are cuddlers working towards a licensure?
I don't know that it's quite gotten to that point yet. I think we're working more to destigmatize the service than anything else, because at this point, I don't know how many of my clients like will openly say, "Yeah, I cuddle with people and I pay for the service."
I don't know. That one guy was. I mean,
that one guy
I
was
a
super chatty about it, but it could be
but he
like
was super
situational.
high. He was
Yeah.
super high from
Super high
on
from the
endorphins.
service.
Not from drugs.
And
Not
also,
from drugs.
and not from
Endorphins,
drugs, by
right.
the way. Yeah, not
No,
high in that
from
way.
life.
But, it could also be that you're a stranger. You're not someone that he's going to interact with on a regular basis. And
Like
there is a
boss
freedom
or-
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to Sam, because we've talked about Sam a lot.
Yeah.
So, and I know Sam's written at least one book, maybe 2 coming out now. So
Yes.
let's talk about Sam and maybe talk about her experience with cuddle and why this became such a passion for her.
Yeah, definitely. So, without telling her story verbatim, I can definitely say that her experience was in severe touch deprivation, and that includes her growing up and in her marriage. And I think that kind of shaped her desire to give people an option to have that kind of intimacy and emotional support that just wasn't being met otherwise. Because if you think about it, a lot of people, even if they see a therapist, even if they go to work every day, really don't have a stable social community. They don't have, like, it's either my parents live really far away or I don't have a good relationship with them. Not really in, like, close contact with my family, or, like, my family's kind of toxic. Don't really have any friends, or, like, my friends are, like, not really the kind of people who are, like, emotionally there for me. They're not going to cuddle me. They're not going to hug me. Like, I'm lucky if I get, like, a pat on the back. So because there are so many people who are dealing with that same kind of isolation and that touch deprivation, she kind of just saw a need for this kind of service and like just made it happen through sheer fucking willpower.
Wow, talk about a passion changed to a mission. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about.
Exactly. And what I think is fascinating about it is that we will get people who their first impulse is to kind of bristle at the idea of commodifying and commercializing a human biological need. But when you think like, okay, well, are you planning on just going over to this person's house and cuddling them because they don't have any friends? No, probably not. So there needs to be a service there, kind of like there are sexual services for people who either are not getting their needs met or simply don't have resources. They don't have an outlet.
I think
for
that we should all be able to openly, freely do these things. Prostitution is legal in Amsterdam.
And Nevada.
Yes.
I mean, there's so many layers of needs that we all have that are unique to each of us. It's like, and also now we can't talk about it.
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about it. They're like, I'm embarrassed because I need this service, or I'm embarrassed because I like feet, or
because I feel like I have to pay for
right?
this.
You're embarrassed because you like certain things. If we don't talk about these things, then like you said, you're trying to get rid of the stigma of what's of your service and what it's for. We're here to help you do that, darling.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. But yeah, I feel like there is kind of like this Victorian morality principle structure that is just like, it's taking over everything. Like, you cannot be friends with a person of the opposite sex because you might want to fuck them.
Right.
You can't cuddle someone because you might want to fuck them. You can't have sex with someone because then you're fucking them.
Right.
There is no winning in this situation. You can't get your biological needs met. And one of our most basic biological needs is community and touch. Like, we are primates, and
I agree.
That is something that I feel very passionately about, is that, like, you are supposed to be touched. You are supposed to be, like, held. You are supposed to have people around you at all times. And
At
we're
all
so
ages
isolated.
and all stages in life.
Exactly. If
And
you
that
don't hold a baby, the baby's brain doesn't grow.
Yes.
Like, how fucking mind-boggling is it that people still think that, like, as an adult, you should just be fine on your own?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a very good point. I 100% agree. I mean, there's some articles that I've seen, and one of my favorites, it's this Amazon tribe. And when somebody does something that's violent, some violent act, instead of putting them in jail, they put them in the center of the circle. And they just give them nothing but compliments and love and compliments and love. And they're completely surrounded by the tribe, which is all ages and different experiences, and they just give this person love, and that's how they heal them, rather than the alternative, which what we do here.
Right, which is isolate, and we make a big production of our outrage.
And we make them feel bad.
And I think
Worse than they already feel.
there is some value to calling things out when you find, like, severe overarching injustices, but I do feel like we have created a system where nobody trusts anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can't fuck up. If you fuck up, you are going to be ostracized for life.
Yeah.
And sometimes things are, like, totally legitimate. Like, oh, you're a lawyer that works in immigration law and you're super fucking racist. That's a problem. But sometimes it's like, you made a really shitty joke, and I promise you everyone in this room has made a really shitty joke that would offend somebody, and now you have lost your job.
Right.
And nobody will hire you because you have become an internet pariah. Like, there needs to be some sort of, like, redemption, or like, hey, this person fucked up, but is this bad enough to ruin a person's life?
Well, it's also the appropriate things to fit the appropriate crimes. I think that if you abuse animals, that you should be abused in the same way.
I have many thoughts on abuse of vulnerable persons, whether that be animal or human. But yeah, that is, I feel slightly like a hypocrite because I don't think that anyone should ever be hurt. But also, like, if anyone ever hurt my daughter, I would end them.
Oh, yeah. No, that's normal.
or
like, I would just make them disappear. Like, they just wouldn't be found. I don't know what happened to them.
Well, I think that's why a lot of people have pets in their life right now, is because they are alone. And that is way safer in a societal thought process to have a pet to cuddle and hold. And some of these...
But not too many, or you're a cat lady.
True story. But people put their pets in strollers and carriers, and it's because they want something warm and cuddly next to them. It all goes back to that.
They want someone to love them.
For touch, but the need for touch, too, to feel something warm against your own body.
Absolutely.
And pets are safer than people.
I immediately chemically react when I'm naked to naked, like body to skin, and I smell my husband. Like, I chemically react, like I instantly like melt. There's something about that kind of touch, and with the person that I feel the safest with, that immediately releases all of those endorphins, and that is where I want to be.
Yeah, and I think
and you're blessed.
you are very blessed.
You are blessed to have that.
I had a vision clear as day that I was going to be with that man 15 years ago.
Magic.
And now here you are.
He is.
Who is he? But yeah, that's something to acknowledge too, is that there is a difference between the feeling that you get with a partner and the feeling that you get from a mom or a sister. And there are actually services in places like Japan where they're the sister services, where you have a woman come in, and I'm assuming there must be like brother services too, but you don't hear about that as often. But you have a woman come in and she helps you. She says, okay, what are you doing? Like, come on, let's clean this up. Let's hold hands and we'll do this together. Like, people
could
need
be a good
family, you know?
Well, I want to speak to that just for a moment because I have a sister and she is a dear friend. And, you know, she and I can talk about anything and we can go through anything together. And I'm one of 4, so 2 girls, 2 boys. And I have a daughter that has a brother. And I really, Megan, this one's for you, darling. I really feel that somehow she got cheated a little bit because she didn't get a sister. And because I know that sister love.
My sister sucks.
So you have 2 different spectrums. You have 2 different spectrums right here.
I feel the same way, Lori. If this makes you feel better, I love my little brother Forrest more than anything on this freaking line. We talk about all the time how we're twins. And we pull it off all the time because we're so confident that we were twins. We were just born 2 years apart.
Well, my
One
children,
stayed in the womb.
So it's different.
right. Well, I've got a male and a female child, and it has taken them almost 30 years to like dovetail that relationship because I think they were, and I was a single parent too, so they were both pulling at me in different directions. But back to the tent, the sisterhood, I do feel like my daughter, and I think she is seeking all of her life to find that female connection. So it's not just male to female connection. There's female to female, and I'm sure there's a male to male connection too that is way more in the closet.
Oh, yes.
Than anybody even wants to talk about.
I think that actually is something that we could go into right now because no matter how you're looking at it, we are all searching for the relationships we've missed out on. Because we get the fairy tale through media and movies and all of these things
Disney.
Constantly fed through our phones and all of our devices that are constantly surrounding us. We're like, wow, I missed out on that kind of a relationship. Oh, I missed out on that. I have mommy issues, daddy issues, sister issues, brother issues.
Right.
I mean, we all have issues, and that's what we've got to come down to, I think, as a society. And I love talking about this because we've all been dealt a different deck of cards. I like to put it that way. It's how you play the game. It's like we've got to connect and build these bridges, right?
Absolutely.
So that we can start learning from each other the ways that we can. I mean, we've got to be more compassionate, empathetic to people that we meet on the street. And I just really quick before, and I know you guys all want to jump in on this, but I just have to share a moment. And I talked about this again today. And it's like the don't judge a book by its cover. I will give you an example. I had this guy that I was waiting for to pick him up, and I waited 10 minutes, you guys, which was way longer than any other driver would ever wait for somebody. But for some reason, I did. And this guy finally puts all of his stuff in the back, and then he's going to sit in front with me. And you guys know how I feel about that. I'm like, okay, it's on. But as he's walking towards me, he kind of looks like he's stumbling, right? So as a woman driver, I assess it first by how you look, for safety reasons, you guys. I'm sure the same thing happens to you, Joey.
I think that's entirely fair.
Right?
And we've been programmed
just as a safety
to
thing,
react
right? You
to
kind of have to
specific
assess
cues.
things. You're like, you have a few minutes, right? And he was kind of swerving, and it's like, oh, I really hope that he's not drunk. And anyway, so he gets in my car, and I end up taking him on a 20-minute ride. And I come to find out, guys, he has Huntington's disease. Okay, immediately I'm the asshole. I feel like the asshole because
you jump to a point for your own safety.
But in my defense, I have to try to do these types of things just for my own safety because I'm a rideshare company. But when you are more open to something and it may be a little frightening, but when you find out the connection, you're like, oh, do you mind me asking what is Huntington's disease? So he explains to me that that's why he's serving. For you listeners out there that don't know, it attacks your neurology. I can't even say it, guy. Nervous system. Thank you, honey. And that's what makes you walk and you can
it's
appear
like a myelin
drunk.
sheath
Yes,
issue, I think,
yes.
right?
So,
kind of like MS.
So I have these moments all the time, but we're out talking to our society and I'm saying we don't judge a book by its cover because we haven't asked the questions yet, or even maybe just the one question.
But I want to say there was something innately in you that knew you needed to wait 10 minutes.
Yeah.
There was something that you didn't just judge the book by the cover. You waited and you let this person into your car and you found the story.
Sometimes I think it's kismet in the universe when I get paired up with writers because it's just meant to be. For sure.
Absolutely.
Because I get to have these moments where I connect. And when I talk about connecting in my car, I always point to my third eye because it's the connection that I'm having with these people. And
that's why we have
20,
Joey
30
here
minutes.
tonight.
It is. It is.
It's
actually
totally why we have Joey here tonight.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a large part of what I would love to see in the future is more men connecting with each other in deep and intimate ways. Because when I've run group, so I have run group session, and it's been like more like group support.
Oh,
so
talk a little more about that. That's new.
So we were for a while doing weekly group sessions for people so that they could come and be supported and feel like they had connection with people, because a lot of people, even if they are given the opportunity to, make the phone call to someone to reach out, they're not going to take that step because it's fucking scary. It's scary to try to connect with somebody, especially as a man. So there were quite a few sessions where it was all men, and I got to just watch them talk to each other and be there for each other in a way that I can't approach because I am not a man. And seeing that kind of connection and that kind of intimacy, I think that's what a lot of men are reaching for, and they find it, unfortunately, in some really socially immoral ways, like the incel movements, things that are inherently destructive, not just to the world, but to themselves as people. And I would love to see men just connect more with each other, to be comfortable, to be held by each other, to bridge those gaps.
I want to chime in on that really quickly. I'm sorry. I know I'm just running the show, but I have a lot to say about this particular thing. I'm a man's man, but I definitely have a feminine side to myself where I'm able, I recognize, I cry at movies. I find that really okay for me. I think it's okay to be emotional. I think it's okay to feel. I think that we've lived in such a toxic masculinity society for so long that we still think that it's not okay to feel things or to express to other men that we feel things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really destructive in a lot of ways to society and to ourselves. I think it's important for us to be able to express feelings to other men and to not I grew up, if you were in any way weak, showed weakness, you were a fag. What are you, a fag? And I just think that's the most destructive. Yeah, I think that it's the most destructive thing that you can possibly experience as a man, to not be able to express those things. Because what that does is it turns into disease and outrage and school shootings and things that we do that just build up and we explode because we want to express these emotions. We want to express these feelings that we have been repressed by society for so long to express. I think that's where a lot of these destructive things come from, because we need to express them, but we feel like we haven't been able to. Yeah. And I think that we need to talk to other men and make it okay for men to be vulnerable and weak. And I'm sorry, I'm going to step back.
No,
but
and I feel
felt really strongly about saying that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like another important point to note is that all of this social training starts so early. You see in little boys, man up. Buck up. Boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Get it together. Tough it up. And that's not just saying, okay, you need to like have a thick skin so that you can survive in the world. That's saying nothing that you feel is valid. So stuff it down and do your work. Be a man. And for a lot of men, that also means that even with their like closest partner, they cannot let it go because there's so much pressure for them to be a man.
Yeah.
And what does that even fucking mean?
Yeah.
There's a balance, though.
There is for sure a balance.
Man up and take care of your shit,
Mm-hmm.
and then have your moments where you can be vulnerable. There is a balance because too much of one thing is not good, and too much of the other thing is not good either.
But first, like, we need to think about, okay, what are young children actually working with? They are not working with the prefrontal cortex that can say, okay, this is the time to buck up, get your shit done, and then you can have feelings about it after. They're not working with that aspect of their brain. So the fact that we're telling them right off the bat, like, hey, fully amygdala brain, let's go ahead and buck up and like get it done. Like, they're just like, oh, so I'm not allowed to like use the part of my brain that's actually the most active right now. Okay, so what do? I'm going to be fucking angry. I'm going to just cry in my bed at night, you know? And that creates this toxicity in them towards themselves too. Because a lot of the men that I see, anytime they think something that is like slightly vulnerable, you can see them like bristle up around it. Like to create like a little safe wall around it. Like, oh, I can't feel that.
The bubble.
Get it together. It's like, no, you have to be able to feel the things that you're feeling because what you're feeling is actually okay.
Human.
It's okay to say, yeah, it's okay to say, I can't get laid and that makes me really fucking angry.
Yeah.
And to not make it anybody else's problem.
Right.
Because if you're able to say it, then you can say, okay, it's okay that I'm angry. It's okay that I feel frustrated. It's okay that like I feel like I can't reach that connection. So how can I like help myself?
Yeah.
And how can I be okay with it?
Yeah. How do you feel, Lucas?
Well, right now I'm hearing you guys talk about it like a really valid issue. I was raised by a single mom, so I kind of got I was just like her helper, you know. I just helped a lot. And she was a good, just wholesome person. So even though like I didn't really have a father figure around, I just got raised as like a good person, you know. And looking back, like, you know, I never played football, which there's a lot of times in my life where that's frustrated me because a lot of guys use that as like stature and prowess. And, you know, like now as a football fan, you know, like talking about it, like, oh yeah, well, what position did you play? Like I was in the marching band, which I loved. I mean, I had a great time doing it.
Music.
I
want the musicians in the end.
But
those big fluffy hats, ooh.
well, and I mean, I had a great time with it, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. But I look at interactions with other men, and sometimes I'm like I'll try to like kind of get emotional, even in words, or like level with them in some way, or be like, oh man, yeah, this is a really hard situation. You know, what do you want to do? Let's go get drunk. I mean, sure, okay. I mean, but what that's going to turn into is like drunk aggression, you know, like gambling or getting in a fight or, you know, like doing something dumb or hitting on girls even though you're married, like.
Or being self-destructive.
Well, I mean, I think all those things are fairly self-destructive.
But like more directly self-destructive, what we usually consider as. Well, and
I mean, getting in a fight, why? Because I felt like fighting, you know, like, well, but why? You know, like, did that person like attack you or threaten? Like, really, not just dudes looking at me, you know? So I don't know. I feel I have kind of a different perspective than the typical guy, but I still deal with the same scenario and issues. You know, like for me, being raised around and with, I mean, I have a brother and a sister, so there was like, you know, multiple genders in the household, but like mom was the lead role. You know, she kind of like made the rules and showed how it was. I didn't get a whole lot of the interaction, like, you know, like dad talking about girls, you know, how to be a guy with the girls, stuff like that. Like I just never really got it. So I'm a stereotypical nice guy. Like I'm one of those real nice guys, you know. I'm friends with a lot of girls. If I'm at the party, like I'm not, you know, in a typical party situation, I'm not like leaving with the girl or hooking up or, you know, doing those things. I'm having conversations and listening to what they're talking about, but then wondering, you know, why I'm not, like you mentioned earlier, Joey, like I feel sometimes like I'm not able to play the game or be involved in certain ways. I mean, I can, and I have in the past, but it's just I don't know. Like I have a different filter over my perspective.
Do you feel like I wish I knew like a better term for this for like not white people or for like white people. Do you feel like you code switch with dudes? Like you have a way of talking to women that feels like natural, and then you have another way of talking to men that feels equally natural but is very different?
Kind of. I've had to learn like guy talk, I've had to learn how to like say things that don't get you, called a sissy or whatever, that don't get you put down for not like knowing what's up or being able to handle whatever it is. But with women, I feel I talk to them as people, like I don't, aside from like jokey, like lame lines, like I don't know how to hit on a girl. Right. I've never done it before. Like I might have flirted and ended up like making the connection, but to go up and be like, yo, what's up? Like, blah, blah, blah. It's because, as a predator, it seems to me to be predatory
action.
It does, and I've had female friends that have told me like, that's what I like. I like guys to come at me and like make those moves, But
that's also like some of that could be like socially programmed. Like, this is what a dude does. So if he's not a real dude unless he calls me like a bitch, yay.
Yeah, or grabs my ass or whatever.
Like, how do I know he likes me if he doesn't like smack me around a little bit?
The bad boy syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I had female friends in college that would, like this one party comes to mind specifically, and, people go to the party, get drunk, get hook up, whatever. And this friend of mine had hooked up with somebody that she didn't really have a huge interest in, but they like made out and whatever. And then the next day she was like kind of crying about it. Like, I don't feel, I feel, I don't know, I feel weird. Like, and I'm like, well, why did you do that? Do you like him? Well, I just want her to be his friend. Like, if you want to be his friend, why are you making out with him? Because he's just trying to get laid. I mean, I knew the guy, and like, no offense to him or whatever, like, but he was just like trying to get laid at a party he was at, and she was like trying to connect on the friend level, or homie, or be part of the crew, like whatever you want to call it. I kind of knew it already, but it blew me away. Like holy shit, you're not saying this because you kind of think it. Like, you think this, you believe this to be true, I find difficulty in my own like living and stuff, connecting with people, because I don't want to play the bullshit game, and I get told all the time.
Quality, not quantity.
Well, and I get told all the time, dude, you're being like too real right now, or you're being like, what? You're always so deep, you're always so literal, you're always like, you're always like in reality. I'm like, well, fuck yeah, we all are. I'd rather be real with you, and then maybe like it doesn't work, than like play this game and shit happens, and then we're both like awkwardly not going to talk about it or whatever, because I'm always going to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I feel like there is it sucks because like you have people that have probably been in your life for quite a while, but some of these people are not your actual people. And I feel like there needs to be some understanding that there are levels to the amount of interaction that you can have with certain people. Some people you can only joke with. I for sure have people that I can only joke with, because if I get too real, shit's going to go off and they are going to panic.
That would be me and my family.
So I don't, it's not like I'm a different person around them. I am the same person, but I tailor my approach. Like, okay, well, this is the amount of my personality that I can show you and still be like in your life to some degree. You're not going to be my best friend. That's not what's going to happen between us, because I can't be real with you. But the people that I can be real with, I am 100%, and I can say whatever the fuck. And I will say things that make me look ugly, and then I'll look at their face and I'll be like, ooh, I just looked real ugly. And they're like, yep. Like, I'm being an asshole, huh? Yes, you are.
But we still love you.
Yeah,
we still love you, right?
That's the thing. Like, you got to find your people, and I think so many people are trying to force their community together. Like, I've known you for this long. Come on.
That is a very good way to put it. They're forcing the community. So they're
Same
like,
thing with
in
the
that
chicks.
community, they're like, okay, this is
Trying
how
to
you
make
can
homies.
act. This
They're
is how
forcing
you can
community.
act. This is how you can act. This is what you can do. And then the second that person is, this has actually happened for my husband and I. My husband is, he jumped on earlier. very creative mind, like Freddie Mercury, David Bowie, creative mind, like up there. And so the in-between times are very hard. And the depression can get very heavy. He's happy, he loves me, but it's there. It is something that is there. That is something that they struggle with. We talk about that, and he's actually had friends because of the music world, and I put that in parentheses, in the scene. It's like people want to be in part of your life because of what you're doing and who you are, but then the second you get all sad or
come
real,
on, guys, we're just trying to
party about your process and the things that have happened. We have definitely found people that are just like, I just can't get all your sad on me. And I'm like,
that's a funny way of putting it, by the way.
What?
I
can't get all your sad all over me. And really, I mean, we all know that this is, if you don't know, it's a reflection of how that person is feeling also within themselves. Some happy people who have had a pretty damn good silver platter handed to them in their life, but haven't had a ton of traumatic experiences, and they haven't had a lot of those moments where they felt sad. They can't relate to what it is like to be hungry or to be poor or depressed. There are people
lonely.
out there that are
Victimized.
like that for sure.
Yeah.
But just know that this is the real shit that we are all going through.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
it's different. And like I was saying earlier, don't judge a book by its cover. Ask the questions. Instead of posting about the suicide hotline, listen to the people that you love and that love you. And it's going to be chaotic and different. And we're all going to have different things that we're into. But that's okay, and we have to accept those things in all of our friends. In our tribe, our chosen family, I guess, would be a good way to put it.
So I just want to say to Joey, I'm just sitting here thinking, what a service. What a service that you provide to people who may just potentially stay in their bedroom and silently suffer.
Oh yeah, no,
Right,
you're probably
right.
definitely saving
No, I
people from suicide.
I definitely have quite a few people with suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
A few people who have been institutionalized.
But they get out of their house, they get out of their bed, shower because that's one of the rules.
Because that's one of the rules.
Right.
Please shower.
Shower, brush their teeth.
Just don't be stanky.
Right. But they have
Don't
to
smoke a cigarette.
they
before
have
you
to
go in.
do that. And for some people that's real effort.
Yeah, for me, when I am depressed and to the point where I have a very difficult time functioning, if I can take a shower, that's like a fucking accomplishment.
Exactly.
Like, it feels ridiculous to say that because it seems like such a basic thing, like brushing your teeth.
Well, there's
but then
a lot
you're
of
like,
people who
but
don't
I
get
just
showers.
brushed my teeth
No.
like yesterday, and I
There's-
just don't want to get out of bed, and everything sucks, and I fucking hate myself. So why bother? My teeth are gonna rot out anyway. It's a big deal.
Right. And to take it to another level and even leave the house. Okay, that's level 2. And then level 3 is interact with another human. I mean, those are 3 very significant steps.
The third being highly scary for a lot of people.
Right. Those are 3 very significant steps for somebody who's like locked in themselves.
Absolutely. And for someone who has probably gotten used to the idea that they are unlovable and cannot function with other humans.
Because their ego, their Lego, their inner child has been told that at some point in time and they locked onto it.
Absolutely.
Locked onto that.
Or they're
thought.
trying to force relationships with people who aren't their people. And that's something that I see the most is people who are like, well, this person doesn't want to be my friend, so there's something wrong with me. It's like, babe, that's not your people. Like, there is a quote, I think it's by Dita Von Teese, you can be the juiciest, ripest peach, and there will still be people who don't like peaches. And that's okay. Like, you don't have to be everybody's person.
Oh,
it
I
doesn't
love
make
that.
you
Respect
a
each
bad
other's
person.
truth.
Yeah.
Let's learn from each other.
And you can find people who relate to you
more often.
The truth wouldn't hurt so bad if it were told more often.
Exactly. And I think like the big thing is realizing that all of us are fucking weird. I have never seen a fully normal person ever. And the more I talk to people, even the people who have it the most together, who have like the good job with the good family and the good education and the hobbies, and like they seem to have everything in line, they're fucking weird. They're just real weird. And that's the best thing that I can tell people is like, everyone's fucking weird, you're fine. Like you fit right in.
Yeah. None of us really can live confined within the white picket fence.
No perfect human being on the planet. No. That's why we're here.
And we also don't, I love that phrase, is like, we don't have to be confined to the white picket fence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, break free from the box that was created around yourself. Expand your mind. Let's learn from each other. There's, no wrong or right way to do a lot of things. Just respect how somebody else, just the bravery of putting my pants on today.
Right, exactly.
That goes back to last week and just living in grace, right?
Yeah.
We're on this planet to be human.
Yeah.
Let's embrace that for a minute.
Yeah.
And grace is here to just allow us to do that. Yeah. So let's focus on grace and forgiveness.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because forgiveness is not for the other person, people. Forgiveness is for yourself. Mm-hmm. And when you finally can wrap your head around that, and that's a big concept, I get it. But when you can wrap your head around that, there is such freedom in forgiveness.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, when you truly take your power back, you don't need validation from other people. You don't have to say anything. That's when you truly take your power back, is when you're free of that, when you don't have to have any kind of validation from anybody.
And I think like it's worth saying it's actually okay to want validation because it is part of community, but to want validation and to think that validation dictates who you are as a person, whether or not you're getting it, those are two polar opposite things.
Absolutely.
Like you can want the validation and say, it'd be really nice for someone to tell me I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
Without saying the fact that nobody's telling me that means I'm a fucking horrible person and I should just not be a person.
Yeah. No, the compliments, and just even if I notice that if I wave or even just smile at somebody and they see me, their face changes. And so I'm like, I love telling little cute old ladies in their flower outfits and their hats and stuff how adorable they look, and I think they look so beautiful. And I get so many hugs and kisses and just made their day, and I'm just like, oh, looking hot, youngster. It's so cute. It's so cute. So just to make the connection is super fun.
One of the things I've learned from my little fairy sister sitting next to me right now is, just embrace life and just be you and don't be afraid.
Yeah,
just
be you.
Just be you.
And don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out when you need the support, because there is nothing wrong with feeling low and vulnerable and feeling like you need somebody to just say, hey, everything's okay.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, there is like the talk of like, don't say, hey, don't commit suicide. Just call them and see what's going on. But a lot of people will not take the bait. That's
going to be a whole other podcast, darling.
So telling people like, hey, it's actually okay for you to reach out and be like, I am not okay, guys. Like, I need somebody to come over right now and tell me that everything's going to be okay. Or if that's not possible for you, to reach out to somebody in any way that you can and just say, either, I have the money and I need someone to just hold me for an hour and tell me everything's going to be okay. Yeah. Or just say, like, I don't have the money. What can I do?
Yeah.
Can I get like a cuddle companion? Someone who will just like, we can be there for each other.
And also check in with your happy friends. Mm-hmm. Check in with your nice guys. Check in with your La Familia, with your chosen family. I have a wide variety of ages in my chosen family, and I tell you, my 72-year-old friend that was a logger and a golfer his whole life. He loves me so much, and all I got to do sometimes is just text him that I love him. So sometimes just putting the effort, you guys, like a letter, I know that sounds crazy and super old school, but put a stamp on it. That could really like make or break somebody's moment. They could seem like the happiest person alive, but it's those little moments that really, you could say hello to somebody and that could save their life that day. You don't ever know. You just don't ever know.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's all about us like all reaching out towards each other and seeing no shame in it. Having the conversations. Having the difficult conversations and understanding that if someone doesn't want to have that conversation with you, that's not like a reflection of your worth, your value of who you are as a person and whether or not you're fucking weird. But it's more about other people not necessarily being comfortable to hear it, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
So as we're getting ready to kind of wrap this up tonight, Joey, I want to give you an opportunity to maybe, if people can't come to you as a cuddler, I know that Sam has a couple of books out there.
Absolutely.
So if you might give our listeners some information about Sam and her book, I think.
So that, I mean, you can educate yourself on what this is, all the little rules. Read the rules, guys. It's fascinating. We did.
It's on the web.
Yeah. If you have any questions about it, look it up.
Yeah, so the two websites that I can direct them to is cuddleuptome.com. That's the actual studio website. And you can watch our awkward videos and learn more about us there. Another place that you can look at is certifiedcuddlers.com, and that is anyone who's been certified by Sam, who had to go through the training and has been vetted by her. So that's all across the USA, and I think they have some people in other countries too.
I did look it up, and it is confirmed that Cuddles Sanctuary, and it's in Venice, guys.
Yeah, so Cuddle Sanctuary is another one that has a certification program that is solid, and they're like our sister studio, essentially. The lady that runs that and Sam both work together frequently and talk with each other about the woes and joys of owning a cuddle studio. Sam also has released a book called Touch, and that is just about like her history and like the science behind cuddling. So there is a lot of like fascinating science behind it. It's not just all like feel good and lovey and woo. Although it's that too. And then there is a book coming out by the end of the year. I think she's currently wrapping it up. It is going to be called Confessions of Professional Cuddling.
Oh, good. I'm sure everybody's stoked for this one.
Yeah. So what's really cool about it is that she got a whole bunch of professional cuddlers to talk about their experiences in very vulnerable and like real ways. And it also goes into like the history of cuddling and her own personal experience and what, how her experiences shaped the way the professional cuddling worked for her and how her natural personality kind of like made her a good fit for it, which I think is also really fascinating because a lot of people feel like they're like, if they're going into the certification program, that they're going to be a magic fit because they want to do it. It's not that easy, unfortunately. If it was, then everyone would do it. Although I would love that kind of life. Yes, I need a hug, stranger on the street. Will you please hug me and not be weird about it?
I love hugging my passengers.
I know. I love hugging people in general. Yeah, with consent, of course. You want to ask, would you like a hug?
And I do every time.
We're all about consent. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely it gives some really great insight into the history of the profession and also what other people think about it, because people have such varied reactions and impressions of the business based on what they've experienced, and it might not be in line with what Sam experienced.
Yeah. I think that's great. You guys, I highly recommend as listeners. I know you've all been super curious as we have. Hopefully we answered some questions that you may have, and hopefully we stemmed some curiosity into going into it further. And even if it's not for you, maybe you know somebody who it is for. I mean,
and if it is for you, check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. We highly recommend Joey.
Oh, hey, thank you. All of the cuddlers are great, and we're all like vastly different from different life paths. So you can find someone who will work for you.
Yeah,
it's a process, but it's supported. We'll help you.
Yeah, what's the websites to link them to the book?
So
Cuddle Up to Me.
Cuddleuptome.com is where you can find information about all of it. Like everything links off of that. So if that is the one thing that you remember, cuddleuptome.com. And then certifiedcuddlers.com is the secondary where you can find a cuddler in your area if you are not from Portland.
Awesome. And
Thank
then
you.
that's also another reason to come visit us in Portland, guys.
Yes, I love my travelers, the people that visit me.
Awesome. So thank you so much, you guys, for tapping into a pretty fun subject. I mean, it's great to have all of you guys specifically talking about this, even my man tonight. So thank you, Joey, for coming. We're super stoked.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. We always like to end our podcast with some sort of great story or moment, or maybe it's not great and maybe it's super depressing, but it's something that's happened to us, just to kind of involve our listeners on things that happened to us. And Lori, do you have something to share this week?
Oh my. What am I sharing this week?
Or Lucas?
Either one of you. Do you want me to go first?
Yes.
All right, you guys. So today, I something that has been happening or coming up, and we actually this last week we had a podcast where we talked about puppies, and so I wanted to follow through with some stuff. Fang and Feather has been really fun. We're going to have Granville from the garden department coming up soon on October 9th is when that podcast will be released. So we'll get to kind of tap into some fun plants, which will be cool. But today I found out, and I went into the Oregon Humane Society, physically went in there today, you guys, because I had just heard that we got a bunch of dogs. So the story is that we have 49 dogs and 25 cats that have been brought into the Oregon Humane Society from Oklahoma. And it's so that we could help clear the Oklahoma shelter so that they could take the dogs in from the hurricane and the storms that are happening. So just to follow up with our podcast we had last week, if you guys are ready for a puppy or a kitty, I walked through today, you guys, and they are exceptionally cute.
Rescue pets will rescue you.
Oh, man, they are gorgeous and ready to have homes, and they're all through their different processes. So if that's something that you guys are ready, I mean, they are accepting volunteers, but I think their next class for that is at the end of the month. So hopefully a lot of these animals will have already found homes. But please, you guys, help me spread the word that that's what's happening. They definitely are anxious. All of them are very anxious to find homes. So I just wanted to share that with everybody tonight.
So just a question. Do you know if all those pets get adopted, are they going to keep bringing more and more because there are more pets?
I don't know. Like the information I literally just have right now that they brought. So we must have had some already, but they brought in more. And this happened last week. So I just know that they came in from Oklahoma so that the Oklahoma shelter could take in the shelter dogs from the hurricanes and stuff. So I know that they need more help. I know that, we were talking about the lady who rescued the 97 strays in the Bahamas. So it's actually something that we can do in Portland.
Can I live with her?
I know, right? It's pretty cute. Anything else, guys? Any questions?
I think we should leave it at that because there's so much suffering going on in the Bahamas right now that's a good note, and that's some way that people, our listeners, can help by adopting a pet.
Yeah, so, or volunteering your time, guys. So that's actually, it goes with cuddling as well. It does cost, I think it's $59. It's under $60. But you go in, you pay the course, you guys. It goes to the animals. It's very beneficial. And you can have a little one to cuddle. Even if you can't have one personally, you get to go volunteer and you get to cuddle these babies, and they're pretty cute. So,
And dogs are very much like people in that if they don't get cuddles, they become mentally very, very sad. Incredibly sad. They are pack animals.
Toys or anything
because
they're waiting for their owners to come back. It's really devastating. So there's another option for you guys out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Cuddle
All right,
anything.
you guys. Awesome. Thank you so much tonight, you guys. We had a blast. Thank you, Joey. Don't forget to visit therealshit.net. You can visit our podcast there. You can shop our current products that we have. And now you can officially subscribe to our podcast on YouTube. So visit therealshit.net. And don't forget